Another application of the questions in Ford applies to family or friends. Now, if I'm with a family member, mom, dad, cousin, uncle, sister, whoever it might be, or somebody I work with, I see them every day and it's a longer ongoing relationship, I have to change the way I use Ford. If I started out with my dad saying, hey, tell me about your family, I don't want to do that. So the logical thing is I just ask questions that get me updated. So let's say it's my uncle and I haven't seen him for a week or a month or whatever. Say, Uncle Bob, how's the family doing? So I still follow Ford, but how's the family? How are the kids? I heard your wife was sick. Is she, Aunt Mary, is she doing better? And then I go on to O. How are things going at work? I know you were sort of fearing getting laid off. Is everything going okay? So I'm getting caught up. I'm showing interest in them. And then there's one of two routes with R. One route might be, I know nothing about his religious background. If he has any, I've been around him a lot of my life, but I've never experienced if he has a religious background. So I might ask him something like this. I've never picked up an indication as to whether you're involved with any kind of religious group. And they might be, but they only go on Sundays, or they're very inactive in it, or maybe he had been raised in something. So I ask them, I don't know, do you have any kind of religious background? And he'll tell me whatever it is, and then I proceed as I would with anyone else. Or it may be very obvious. I've been around him long enough to know that he is a member of some cult or some other religious group by their practices, by the things he says. And so I can say, it's been obvious to me, it appears anyway, that you've been active in such and such group in your life. Well, how'd you get started with them, and how long have you been involved with them? And what does being a part of that mean to you? So I'm showing interest in asking questions. At the end of that, whichever route I go, I still come back to D. I'd like to ask you a tough question. Ask everybody this. Doesn't matter what their background is. In light of your background, do you feel like you've come to the place you could say for sure that if you were to die today, you'd go to heaven? And then I just carry that out the same as anybody else. But that's a little bit of an adaptation for family or friends, work associates, that I know their F and I know their O. Let me tell you about what to do with atheists. When you're visiting with somebody and you talk about family and occupation and outside activities, and then you ask somebody, do you have any religious background? And they say, well, I'm an atheist or agnostic, whichever it would be. That used to scare me, and I didn't know what to do that, because I always assumed anybody who was an atheist was an intellectual and they knew a whole lot more about everything than I did, and I was in over my head. I found something out. I'm not afraid of atheists anymore, and you don't need to be afraid of them either. I've learned that behind every atheist is one of four basic stories. Most people are an atheist for one of four reasons. One, they were educated into being an atheist, maybe in their science classes in high school or college, or a philosophy class or some other history class. Somebody taught them. It could have been a teacher, could have been a parent, it could have been a friend who leaned in that direction, and so they just pushed them in that direction, led them in that direction. So they were educated into it. A second category is somebody who had a bad experience with a church or religion, and they just decided to write it off. If that's what it's all about, I want nothing to do with it. Some become atheists because they have a bad experience in life. They've suffered some loss or something, and they were trying to figure out if there's a God of love, and why did he let this happen? This is bad. So this happened and it's bad, so there can't be a God of love, or he wouldn't have let this happen, so I just dismiss God. Or the fourth major reason, I'm going to have to change my lifestyle. I can't keep doing what I'm doing the way I do it, when I do it, how I want to do it, and with whomever I want to do it. So I know enough, I do not want to give up my way of life. So it's easier just to get rid of God rather than have to deal with those changes. So when people say, in response to my question, what's your religious background? I'm an atheist. I've changed my strategy. I didn't know what to do before, but you know what I do now? I just lean forward a little bit and I say, well, that's interesting. Tell me, how did you become an atheist? They're happy to tell me. I haven't had one yet that said, I don't want to talk about it. They never have anybody ask them that sincerely. And so I'll ask them, how'd you become an atheist? And sometimes they had one of those bad experiences back there, so I'm just listening and paying attention, sincerely interested. And I listen to their story, however long they want to spend sharing it with me. I don't attack them. I don't quote the Bible verse, it says, only a fool says in their heart there's no God. That would be a dumb approach at this point. I have two basic things I do with atheists. The first approach is this. After listening to them, I'll ask them a question. Since you become an adult, have you ever had the opportunity to sit down with somebody and hear a clear presentation without pressure about what Christianity is really all about? Few of them have. And I know that before I even ask the question, because few Christians ever had anybody sit down with them before they became a Christian and give them a clear explanation of what it's all about. So most of them are going to say, no. I've had some say that to me recently. And then I'll say, well, if you would be interested, I'd be glad to get together with you and share these studies I have that will give you a clear explanation of what it's all about. And I'll explain the 4 studies we have, and we do one a week, and we get together, and there's no pressure. And some of them are interested. It surprises me, but everybody who's an atheist is not antagonistically opposed to God. They just haven't had the opportunity to hear a good reason to change and be anything else, or to believe in God. That's one approach. So if I use that and they say, well, that would be interesting, I'd be glad to do that, then we'll set up the studies. If I've sense some body language or whatever that there's hesitancy, or they say, no, I'm really not interested in that, I go a little bit further if I sense it would be not pushing the envelope here too far. I say, I'd like to ask you a question. It's sort of a tough question, but here it is. According to your understanding, what does the Bible say a person has to do to be sure that when they die they'll go to heaven? And sometimes the response is, I don't believe in the Bible. I don't believe in heaven. I heard you. I assume that. Listen to the question again. According to your understanding of what the Bible says, what does it say? I know you don't believe it. What does it say any person has to do to go to the heaven it talks about? Oh. Well, you have to keep the 10 Commandments, go to church, give money. And I love to hear that, because my response to that is, that's very interesting. That's what a lot of people think. But I want to tell you, if I believe that, I'd be an atheist too. Now you might be surprised, the Bible doesn't say that. Some people have said the Bible says that, but it doesn't say that. If you would be interested, I'd be glad to get together with you and take you through these 4 studies I have that will show you what it clearly says. I normally do one a week and space them out. I can come to your house wherever you want to do it. No pressure. I'm not going to try to get you to do something you don't want to do. And when we're done, you still might not believe it. I understand that, but at least you will know what you don't believe. Because right now, you're rejecting it based on inaccurate information. So you still may reject it on the right information, but at least you would know what you don't believe. If you'd been I'm available. I've had some say, sounds interesting, be glad to do that.